Oh my goodness.
It's a big day.
Welcome everyone. If you're tuning in, we're sort of keeping an eye on the YouTube chat, so you're welcome to post up where you're coming in from. I saw some messages from Robert, Ruben, Joan, Pete, Complex Traveler, Easton Sensibility. Thank you for tuning in. So glad to see you all. I've got some people back home. Micah, a buddy of mine I've been tasting for years and years with, who joined the club. So thanks for coming in. Well, we got some news. You were telling me you got some news today. What's going on out there in the wine world?
Well, I was flipping through a favorite cooking subscription that I follow, and they were talking about nutritional yeast and how that's essentially made of brewer's yeast, which happens to be a strain of yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is what's used in winemaking. And it was talking about how much protein is in that yeast, in nutritional yeast. And so it just kind of like the tie-in of all of that, I thought was like absolutely fascinating. The different things, the different ways we eat and drink, and how all components can be used. And yeah, that was kind of the news that I was tuning into today. But Mad, you had some too.
I had some news. Yours is fun and educational. Mine's like sad.
It is.
So it just came out. Wine Enthusiast just posted it today. There's a major fire happening in Chile right now. It's cold AF here, but it's warm, hot, and on fire in southern Chile right now. And over a million acres burned, like huge. And, Itata Valley and Biobío Valley are the regions that are being affected by this. And, normally when wine vineyards burn, it's really tragic and sad, and that's terrible. What's particularly sad about this story is that these vineyards are some of the oldest vineyards in Chile. They're the old vines that don't ever get planted anymore, that are Masal selection, which is this old way of planting where you cut off a piece of a good vine that grew well and you plant it over there. And we don't even do that style of planting anymore. So, and the varieties are very rare that you have down there. They have all these different variants of what is the major Pais?
Pais, yeah.
And Carignan, and we're only just starting to get into these wines as in the United States. What's that? Is it called Viña? What's that? Is that the group that makes the Mal Valley, the Maule Valley wines? I think it's called Viña or something like that, where they only use the old vines from that region. And so that's my sad news.
Yeah.
Fires. Yay, no. So yeast as protein, that's good because nutritional yeast is like one of the major flavor ingredients in a lot of vegan food.
And it's just great on popcorn, I'll be honest.
It is really good on popcorn, actually. That's totally delicious. So thank you for everyone joining in and saying where you're coming in from. I saw someone from New York, Los Angeles, Indianapolis, Virginia, Washington, Long Island, Nantucket, everywhere. Welcome. We're so happy to have you. If you have a glass of wine that you're joining with us from the set, or any wine at all, or no wine, that's fine too. But I think a little introductions are in order. So can I introduce you? I want to introduce Colina.
So go for it.
This is Colina Marshall. She is started working with us in October. Say hi to Colina. I'm gushing over here. But I've really enjoyed working with Colina so far since October, because she was basically landed with the project of figure out how to run and start and operate and do all the planning for a wine club and get it all. And then while you're doing that, learn how to work with all these new people that you've never met before. and she's taken the charge, and here we are today enjoying our first club together. So, and Colina's got a big background in wine. In fact, she was referred to us through another wine club person that I know through my business partner, David. So there's like a connection there. And you have some background in wine education, a WSET diploma, and you've had that for years and years. And then you're also stage 2 of the Master of Wine program, right?
Yes, 5 years into it, and please, everybody send your well wishes for the next attempt. Would like to pass this exam at some point, would be very nice.
Yeah!
But it's good. Full-time wine nerd.
Full-time wine nerd. Awesome.
Speaking of full-time wine nerds, I'm sure most people here know the lovely, amazing, wonderful, talented Madeline Puckette.
I'm gonna
founder and creator of Wine Folly.
Wait, hold on.
Has made 2 books.
Visual aid.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I love the cover because I didn't design it.
It's a beautiful cover.
That's what makes you love it more. If somebody else made it for you, you're just like, it's art. I love it. My own work, I'll just be like, I hate it. It's terrible.
Amazing. Yeah. A couple accolades to say the least, being a James Beard Award winner, a New York Times bestseller, famous for courses, maps, prints, and wine education tools, and also no big deal Wine Communicator of the Year by the International Wine and Spirits Competition. So, I mean, we'll stop there for now.
I was blitz drunk at the end of that award ceremony. And mainly because, well, the Scots were there and they had all their whiskey. And so that was a problem. And then I've met all these amazing, because the International Wine and Spirits Competition does all of the wine and spirits from around the world. So there was these they were Baijiu producers, soju producers. There was like all this interesting stuff. And I found like a Taiwanese whiskey that was really good, like from Taiwan. I was blown away by that competition. Most competitions sort of focus on the classical regions, and International Wine and Spirits Competition is like, all are welcome. So that was too much for me.
That's awesome. Us wine drinkers aren't used to drinking spirits too much, I don't think.
It's trouble.
They're a little
true.
potent.
My I like slurp my drinks because I drink wine. All right. So what's next? Help me through this.
Well, I mean, I think we're going to talk a little bit about sort of our Wine Folly Club mantra. And kind of like sort of the guiding light for this process. As you mentioned, we got this kicked off kind of early October, and it was like a little bit carte blanche, you know what I mean? And so what we decided to do was to pick some delicious, wonderful wines that hopefully everybody has on hand. And the goal was just to explore the world of wine while we're tasting together. All are welcome. Beginners, experts, and we all need practice tastings. So like, let's do it together. And why not?
Yep. And so today what's in store for you we'll be tasting all the wines in front of you. I have my handy dandy spittoon because I'll be spitting. You don't have to open all of your wines. If you don't want to, that's fine. That's a lot of wine to open in a night, and being responsible is always a great idea. So you can save this video for later if there's something you want to go back and watch and experience while you're tasting this wine. That's totally a great idea. But we thought we would do it all together just because we are, I don't know, here we are. We're doing it. Let's do it. And a little secret, fun upcoming thing, we're going to have some perks coming through the wine club. This just came through. We just got the samples in, and Colina is showing off this beautiful pivot by Coravan, which you will find out about in an upcoming email, probably. And so that's essentially what's coming up in this video right here. It should be about an hour long if we're on point, which we'll be on point, right? Yeah,
we're gonna be on point. Definitely.
But you got housekeeping. Tell me what I need to know.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, let's all drink responsibly. That's important. We got the live chat here on the side. We're keeping an eye on things. We will have a Q&A session at the end. If there's something that's like easy for us to answer as we're going, don't worry. We'll make sure you're taken care of, whether it's at that moment or at the end. And hopefully we don't have any too embroiled debates between the two of us, but who knows? That could be interesting, right? And also, if anybody does have any club issues, compliments, otherwise, we can't really finagle those. So if you could send those to club@winefolly.com, that would be amazing.
Yeah, help. We'll help you. We promise. Just not right now.
Yes.
Okay. Woo. All right. Housekeeping. So, and with that, there is one other special guest. She is in
Secret.
England currently. So it is the middle of the effing night for her right now. So instead of her staying up late, because she does have 3 children, we thought instead she could record her. And this is Christine, who started working with us. I'll let her introduce herself because she's got a really amazing video intro. But I will say this, since working with her, I have been... She's amazing. She's running all of the wine education for Wine Folly, and she helped build us the Wine 201 course last year. And wow. So she just got back from Valdobbiadene, and we want to kick off with this wine, Sorelle Branca and Valdobbiadene with Christine Marsiglio.
Everyone, I'm Christine Marsiglio, and I'll be your nerd for the evening.
Woo.
I'm a Master of Wine and the Director of Education at Wine Folly, and I'm so happy you're here tonight. I live in London, so it's a bit past my bedtime, but I've created a few videos and even a little quiz for you at the end. Let's jump in to our first wine. The best way to start an evening is, of course, with bubbles. And our bubbles tonight are from an area of Italy that you'll have heard of before, Prosecco. However, these bubbles come from an elevated gem, the creme de la creme, the stairway to heaven, the tiny region of, it's a bit of a mouthful, Conegliano Valdobbiadene Prosecco Superiore. This DOCG is a small, very hilly region in the foothills of the Alps. The elevation along with the poor soils mean you get fresh, complex, and exuberant wines. Our wine today is made by Sorelle Branca. Sorelle means sisters in Italian, and indeed it is run by 2 sisters, Antonella and Erciliana, who are pushing the limits when it comes to terroir and fine wine in Valdobbiadene. They learned a love of winemaking and viticulture from their father Livio and their grandfather Martino. Having grown up in the hills of Valdobbiadene, they are passionate about preserving the beautiful landscape and the flora and fauna within it. The grapes for our wine tonight came from vineyards that have a gradient of 60%. That's 20% steeper than the steepest street in San Francisco. You should notice a refined intensity of aroma and flavor, along with a somewhat saline finish on this wine, thanks to the brut style. It's one of my favorites, so I hope you enjoy. Cheers!
Cheers, Christine. Thank you.
Cheers.
Wow.
Indeed.
So, wow. This wine surprised me, quite honestly. Like, when you taste a Prosecco, it's easy to get a couple of aromas, and I got so many, like I just kept writing things down. I really liked her point about the saline finish. I was looking for, a lot of Prosecco have sort of like a yeasty beer-like flavor to them, and I didn't really find that in this wine. It feels really fresh and lean and startlingly aromatic.
Yeah, it's funny because like the least part of it is like it's still there like in a really tiny way, but it almost just sort of adds like a creamy texture to it. Not which I also found in the next wine that we're drinking as well too, but we don't need to get ahead of ourselves. But like it just like sort of adds that to it. It's not like that beery kind of like that heaty kind of flavor to it. It's really precise and it's a really pretty wine, really elegant.
Yeah, one of the things that is so interesting about Prosecco, and we just actually launched a guide on this region, Conegliano Valdobbiadene. Say it with me, Conegliano Valdobbiadene. If you do it with a little bit of an accent, it feels more awesome. But we just launched a guide. Crom, if you can post that up in chat to the Prosecco Superiore guide, that would be really great. I can text you a link really quick. I have it handy in the background. This region is very different than, well, it's very different than Champagne for a lot of reasons. And the main reason that most people pick up on is the method, the winemaking method. You know, Champagne is an older style of sparkling wine method where they do the secondary fermentation inside the bottle. It happens inside the bottle. Whereas this method happens inside of these tanks. And I was thinking about it because people are like, tank method. And the Italians go, it's the Martinotti method. And the French go, no, it is the Charmat method. Like everybody disagrees on what this thing is called. And the thing that I find so interesting about it is that the tanks that we had before the 1900s couldn't hold pressure. Like they were made out of oak barrels. And so finally in the early 1900s, some industrious inventors were like, you know what? We can put wine in there and make it bubbly in a big tank. Let's try it out. And that's how Prosecco was created, was through these new stainless steel tanks that started coming around at around the early 1900s. And for me, for wine, which is a very antiquated way of doing things, we're always like looking to the past while trying to be forward thinking at the same time. It felt like a huge leap of innovation that happened in Italy in the early 1900s that we hadn't really seen in wine for a long period of time. And still, like, people are developing new sparkling wine methods today. So it's like, it's a big deal. So I like to enjoy that. And then when I found out about Conegliano Valbondobiadene and what she said, 60% grade, that's awe-inspiring. That's like rock climbing.
Yeah, when we were chatting about that earlier, you don't want to be on a harvest day hand picking those grapes with a bit of a hangover. You're falling down that hill for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a pretty end.
That's right. So nice one, good one on you, good pick. I've had the extra dry.
Thanks, Val.
And I actually think I prefer the Brut.
I like the Brut because I think it just has so much versatility for like pairing. Like anything that has like a little bit of like anything fried with it would be just so delicious.
Ooh. Yeah.
Like literally, and I mean, honestly, who doesn't like French fries? They're delicious. They're wonderful. Everybody needs more of those, not to mention fried chicken. And this is kind of the perfect wine for that, in my opinion.
Okay, so that is the Sorelle Branca. Let us know if you loved it in the tasting, if you've happened to have it. And don't tell us if you don't like it because it's amazing. I'm kidding, but let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next wine in the set. This is going to be one that I'll be talking about. This is the Shaw and Smith. Let's see if I can get it to focus on me. Focus, not on my face. The Sauvignon Blanc from Adelaide Hills, Australia, from South Australia. And if you look at where it's from in South Australia, this region, Adelaide Hills, oh, my goodness. So the first time I ever heard about Shaw and Smith, it was from my boss, for my first wine job ever in Reno, Nevada. And I was going to South Australia. It was like my first wine trip ever. We saved up all this money, my boyfriend and my now husband, to go to South Australia. And he's like, definitely go to Shaw and Smith. We got there. We drove in the driveway, and then we were going to be late for our next appointment. So that's as close as I got to Shaw and Smith. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful winery, and Adelaide Hills is a stunning, stunning place to be. And it's in this area called the Mount Lofty Ranges. And what makes it so unique, this area, is we can grow white grapes. You know, in the north side, in South Australia, it's quite hot. But for whatever reason, it's very, very much cooler in Adelaide Hills. A little bit more about Shaw and Smith themselves. They're actually cousins, like real life cousins. And Martin Shaw is the guy on the left there. And that's Michael Hill Smith on the right. And Michael Hill Smith is actually Australia's first master of wine. And you know how Master of Wine, we've got Christine Marsiglio as a Master of Wine. We've got you. You're working. Colina's working on her Master of Wine, and it's a big deal. And he got it in 1988, and he got this thing called the Boulanger Award. And only the valedictorian student essentially wins the Boulanger Award each year that they do the examination. And Christine got one too. Ah! So anyway, there's a connection there. She was totally freaking out about the fact that we had Sean Smith, and I just wondered if there was a connection there. Anyway, this region as a whole and is very hilly because it is in the Mount Lofty ranges, and that's actually to the secret to how we can produce these wines. You might be, if you have this wine open, you're welcome to smell it and taste it. I'll talk about the flavors of this wine in a little bit, but what I think it's notable is you have a variable climate. You've got hills, you've got different slopes angling in different directions, which can change the temperature of that vineyard and how the grapes grow. But generally what we see here are more cooler climate varieties. So you can do Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, there's a Chardonnay, and they actually grow a little bit of Shiraz there too. But a lot of producers are starting to call it Syrah because they're making it in a much more northern Rhone style. So it's much more tart. It's much more fresh fruited than a lot of the other wines you'll find from South Australia. I want to, this wine in particular, it's a very clean winemaking that's gone into this wine. It's definitely meant to be fresh in the styling. It's stainless tanks and that kind of thing. And you said something about it when we tasted it, when we were talking about this wine earlier, that I think is worth noting about the winemaking.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think like it's just sort of like, I mean, first of all, like the quality of the fruit really stands out here to me. Like there's like this beautiful even ripeness. I mean, you and I were discussing like just how much flavor is in this glass. And just like I don't get that like big, huge, like green bell pepper characteristic to it so much as like almost like fresh green cut grass. And you'd mentioned passion fruit as well, which to me is just like that's the banger here. It's like huzzah, passion fruit in your face.
Yeah.
But you do also get like that creamy undertone from a little bit of lees. So that's
lees.
like the dead
secret.
yeast. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have
mallow man for that.
Yeah, toss up a mallow.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't put the mallow while we're showing the slides. I want to go to the next slide though. I want to show one more thing before we move on from this. Sorry, we've misdirected you in a horrible way. Yeah. Yes, here we go. The geek out. Vineyards. So what makes Sean Smith special is that they are actually an estate winery. They have multiple levels of tiers for their red wines and their Chardonnay, but this is the only Sauvignon Blanc they produce. And by the way, this thing is award-winning. It's constantly put as a benchmark for Sauvignon Blanc in Australia. It's usually getting more than 93 points in ratings. If you follow people, James Suckling, Ned Goodwin, James Halliday Companion, Aaron Larkin at Wine Advocate, people love this wine. It's a very well loved wine. But it comes mostly from these two vineyards that Sean Smith owns. As you can see, Sauvignon Blanc is mostly in Balhana Vineyard. There's a little bit in Lenswood. And they also get grapes from a couple of other producers in Adelaide Hills, but they don't make any wines from outside of Adelaide Hills. They're very specific to this appellation, this geographic indication in Australia. Which I think is really notable. We'll see a lot of producers in this tasting who do a lot of things from all over. So the fact that they're only sticking close to home is pretty special and unique. These are the other wines that I thought would be worth mentioning. I don't even know if you can find these, so it's mean that I'm showing them here now, but you should know about their finest wines. We have, of course, this Sauvignon Blanc, which you're tasting today or maybe tomorrow or last week or whenever. And then we've got their Shiraz, which if you like a cool climate style of Shiraz, this is not your big bodacious Shiraz. This is more of a lean, elegant Syrah. And then there's the Lenswood Vineyard Pinot Noir and Lenswood Vineyard Chardonnay. So these are all single estate wines by Sean Smith that are worth mentioning. And I think it has to do with the fact that they've got a master of wine. They actually have a couple of master of wines on staff. And when you do deep research about the world of wine, you get a very different way of looking at the world around you. When you learn more about wine and you start growing grapes differently. And I think that's what inspired this brand. Yeah. So I hope that's super exciting. This wine is fantastic. And I don't know. Yeah, I think I have anything else to add other than the first passion fruit, like raw, that I ever tasted was when I was in Adelaide Hills. Maybe I had one before long, long ago when I was a little kid. I don't remember. But it was like immediate memory recall when I smelled this one.
It's funny because I feel the same way. I remember chatting with like some like Aussie and Kiwi friends of mine. They're like, oh yeah, passion fruit. And you just don't really have passion fruit a lot in North America.
No.
And then you have the passion fruit and you're like, oh my God, Sauvignon Blanc does taste like passion fruit. They're so bang on. It's crazy. It just all comes together. So I guess like hot tip, go to the grocery store, grab a passion fruit and your mind will be blown.
Yeah. I totally agree. Somebody called out grapefruit as a flavor. I'm trying to think.
Mm-hmm.
I called out white peach, gooseberry grass, petrichor. That's like one of my favorite things to smell in wine is freshly wetted pavement.
How Pacific Northwest of you.
Yeah. And lime juice, passion fruit. And I almost felt like it was almost saline on the palate a little bit too. So yeah, great wine. Super delicious. What's next? Oh yeah. We think we've got another.
The Presqu'île.
Is
there
this
we go?
Oh yeah.
Our pal Christine's going to tell us a little bit about this.
Hi everyone, it's me again. It's time to check out our third wine today, and it's from sunny California. Presqu'île is a family-owned and operated winery that has 4 generations worth of history in farming. The name Presqu'île has special meaning to the family as they had a piece of land on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, which was nicknamed Presqu'île, that used to be used for family gatherings. However, during Hurricane Katrina in 2005, that land was lost to the sea. Originally farmers from Arkansas and Louisiana, the Murphy family started their California adventure in 2007. They searched up and down the West Coast to find the perfect spot for Pinot Noir and settled on the Santa Maria Valley in Santa Barbara County. The Santa Maria Valley is located just 2.5 hours northwest of Los Angeles, so you might think it's really hot here. However, it's one of the coolest viticultural regions in California. Why? Well, one major reason is the Pacific Ocean. In most of California, the mountain ranges run along the coast, protecting the inland from the cool air and fog from the Pacific. However, in Santa Barbara County, the mountains run east-west, funneling cool air and fog directly from the ocean into the vineyards. This makes for a long, cool growing season, which is perfect for Pinot Noir. Now it's time for you to taste this amazing wine with Madeline and Colina. Cheers!
Cheers!
Cheers, indeed. I happen to have this amazing map that you made that has Santa Barbara on it.
Yeah.
That I think is super useful here.
Yeah. That region now has a new appellation called San Luis Obispo Coast. And I was thinking, oh, maybe this wine I think it just happened that it's now SLO Coast. So this wine was produced before you were legally allowed to put it on the bottle. But they're not actually going to be putting it on the label. They're going to stick to Santa Barbara County. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like when we were chatting with them, when we were picking the wine, because they like the flexibility of it. Truthfully, honestly, I'm so pumped up about this wine. I think it's such a delicious Pinot Noir. And we were talking about the color. Robert in the chat also mentioned like what a different color this is. Like, it is such a pale Pinot Noir.
It's so
and it's
pale.
Interesting. We were chatting about this earlier, where it's like, Pinot Noir is a really thin-skinned grape, infamously difficult to grow because it's prone to rot, mildew, all of those other things. But a lot of, I guess, entry-level, inexpensive Pinot Noir, especially in California, gets blended with Syrah to sort of like bulk it up. So you get like that bit of a deeper color, that little bit more bold flavor to it as well too. But this is, I mean, clearly, unquestionably 100% Pinot Noir. Like, it's just so fresh and vibrant. And like, I really get that beautiful, like kind of like just slightly underripe, kind of almost cranberry, raspberry action to it. And I adore this wine. I think it's delicious and love to drink it forevermore.
The one of the people I've always looked up to is, do you remember Gary Vaynerchuk used to do the Wine Library TV? He always would smell Pinot Noir and be like, pickle juice! And I smelled this
Pickle
wine
juice.
like on first open, like it's raspberries and it's cherries and it's hibiscus, it's rose, it's all these pretty flavors, but there's just a little whiff of the Gary V pickle juice.
I wonder if it's because I think that they use like a little bit of like it's all older, mature barrels, so it's not giving a ton of flavor. But I wonder if it's because there's like some American oak in there, because that gives that little bit of like a dill character to it. I don't know.
I don't
Possible.
know. I don't know. That could be. That's a thought. We should find out. We should find out.
Yeah.
They're using
Let's do
American
it.
oak. That's crazy. Yeah. Loving that. This is interesting because we have that coastal influence. You know, this region. This is very close to Los Angeles, and if you know that area at all, is hot. It's very hot there, but because we have that currents in the ocean, we get this fog layer in California. Is anyone tuning in from the coastal California at all? You know what it's like. Every morning you get up and you're like, oh, it's cloudy again. And then it burns off right around 12 to 1, and then it comes back in around 6 p.m. and it stays with you overnight, and then it does the same thing the next day, and that's how it is all summer long. And it sucks if you love the sun because you're just like, come on, give me some more of that. I just want an evening where it's sunny all night and I can watch the sunset. But if you're a grape like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, you can actually produce hello from LA. Sorry, I got distracted. You can see that these wines can be made in this very delicate, elegant style because of that marine influence. So yeah, where you grow matters, apparently. I think it matters for people too. Do you have like a climate where you wish you were in, or you are in the climate where you need to be? We all have a climate. What is that climate?
I mean, nobody wants to be in this climate right now. Let's be honest.
Tell us, where are you tuning in from? Tell everyone.
I am tuning in from Calgary, Canada, and it is minus 10 Fahrenheit here today. Nobody wants to be in this climate. I want this kind of cool climate in my life.
You're like, that sounds fine. Anywhere great.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right.
Little side note, if anybody does want to check out in our beautiful master's guide, page 150 is our Pinot Noir reference there too.
Yeah, great place to look for flavors. All right. Ooh, you've got the next one.
Yeah, I do. Here we go. We're heading to France. Let's go to France. Why not, right? So we have the Domaine de Durban. This is an exciting little wine, and it's funny because it's very much off of the beaten path in a way that it's virtually almost informationless, this wine. We did work with our good friends at Kermit Lynch on this. It is predominantly Grenache based, has a little bit of Syrah and a little bit of Mourvedre in it. What I really love about this wine is that here we are, Southern Rhone Valley, and we're in Baume de Venise. Now, Baume de Venise, like, I'm thinking, like, we got Muscat here, and it's got to be fortified. We got white Muscat, and that's fortified. That's just what happens with Baume de Venise. That's what we've all learned in our wine education all day long. Red Baume de Venise? Are you kidding me? Like, that exists? No, apparently they make, like, a decent amount of it too, and that's cool. That's neat. Let's try something new, right? We're located right next door to Gigondas, as well as Châteauneuf-du-Pape, which is obviously more famously known. And to me, it's like these little gems like this that I love trying to find, where it's just like, you know, anybody can just walk down the aisle and grab a Châteauneuf-du-Pape. But here's something that's going to provide you a ton of value and probably do just as well and give you more bang for your buck, which is cool and personally what I'm all about. So the Southern Rhone, what are we known for? We have the Mistral wind coming from the north. It's an icy, cold wind coming from the seas of the north that comes down. But you can see in this like gorgeous photo that you have this little mountain range that only really sort of breaks off Baume de Venise. So they don't really get any of that wind. So you're getting a lot more heat. You're getting a lot more ripening, and you're also kind of for the way that the actual vineyards are planned too, as a result, because it is so much warmer. They actually plant the vines further apart because there's not as much cooling available, as much water available, all of those things, right? So it's pretty cool how it's done. You get some of those gnarly bush vines in there that have to be picked by hand. All of the grapes are picked by hand at Domaine de Durand, which is pretty neat. And it's a tiny little third generation family run business. The two brothers, Henri and Philippe, are at the helm there. And the craziest part about this was, you kind of flip around and you're like, all right, like where is this exactly? And they actually say, don't use your GPS to get here. But if you go to this unmarked gravel road and go about, 10 kilometers down the road, we'll be there. And, so that gives you really the sense that they like to kick it old school. You know what I mean? And just like as an example of that, this is about as old school as it gets. Big old wooden vats. We were talking about that with the stainless steel tanks and the Martinotti and the Charmat method, debatable who call it what you please. But here we are. We have like these big wooden vats, like, those have been around for, I believe they said about 40 years, these ones specifically, which is pretty neat. Why do we like wooden vats? Well, number one, they're stunning and beautiful to look at, of course, but they actually do allow for a small amount of ingress of air. What's challenging about them, they're much harder to keep clean, right? You can't just like hose them out and huzzah, Bob's your uncle. You can have microbes that live in the wood as well too. So, hygiene becomes a little bit more difficult, but I think they really nail it on this wine.
It's really amazing,
anyways.
actually, because I'm sorry to interrupt, but like most the producers that I know who are making Grenache-based blends, like this one, this is what, 70% Grenache, and 25% Syrah, a little bit of Mourvedre. I thought most of them are using concrete tanks because you don't want that much oxygen exposure for Grenache. So for this wine to be this color, like it's purple. Like I pulled out my
totally purple,
my color guide, my handy dandy Wine Folly color guide, and I was looking at it and I was like, no way. Which I don't know. I wrote down in my book, I think this could last, 7, 10 plus years from this point forward. Like it's young. This is a youthful wine.
Yep. I agree with you totally, Madeline. And these are just a couple of the other wines that they make there. I mean, on the left, we have like the Muscat Baume de Venise, which is, the white fortified, delicious wine that we expect to come from Baume de Venise. They also have a Vieil Vin, so an old vines, which is the wine on the right there too. But, like pretty small little family operation, but I think we should probably taste this because it's going to be really delicious, I think.
So in regards to the description of the color, there are these terms associated with red wine color, and this is called purple, even though it's still ruby, and this is called ruby, and that's called garnet. So it's actually a very close color difference between what is purple and what is garnet. So just keep that in mind. When we talk purple, we mean, oh no, it's still ruby, but it's purple. It's totally purple. So just wanted to answer that. I saw that question pop up in the comments.
Yeah, totally. I find that there's like definitely some purple vibes, especially on the rim, right? And you think like, what is this? Like we have a 2021, so this wine's about a year and a half old from vintage. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, crazy. All right, folks, we've got our next bottle. Moving along here, Familia Ferlotti. Keep this lion in mind because it'll key in a little bit when we're talking about this producer. The producer that makes this wine is called Bodega Ferlotti, and Familia Ferlotti is their sort of main flagship wine of Bodega Ferlotti. This wine comes from Mendoza in Argentina, and Mendoza is huge. This is a huge place. We have about 400-something thousand acres in California. I'm not even in California, but we have it. And they have about 363,000 acres in Mendoza. So it's quite a lot of plantings that are here in this region. And so this region's quite large. And if you can see these areas within Mendoza, They're very different from each other. Even though the major grape here is Malbec, we find a lot of variant in the style of the production of Malbec across this entire region. And this is a Malbec that I have here. I have it here. Oh, that nose. So I just wanted to show you, this is actually from Familia Ferlotti, to show you what where their vineyards are. So we see this, the little stars on the map. They are actually, their bodega is located in Leon de Cuyo. Now, if you ever go to this region, Leon de Cuyo is like the classic historic center of wine production in Argentina. This is where the people came in the late 1800s. Lots of Italian immigrants came in, and Malbec was the major grape that was starting to get planted in that region, along with a few others. And wine production in this region started around Leon de Cuyo, so that a lot of the most historic estates are in this region still, and this is where you'll find them. Now, and that includes to the east in Maipu, and that's where we see that other little star, that's Lunluta. There's Chacras de Coria. Chacras de Coria, if you ever go to Mendoza, that's right at the entrance to the wine route. So if you're planning your trip around Agrello and all these spots that have all the most famous wine producers in this region, you will start or stay at a really cool boutique hotel in Chacras de Coria. Then down south is where we have Uco Valley. This is a very different region in a lot of ways. It's newer plantings, but it's also much higher elevation than Leon de Cuyo, which gives us a different style of Malbec because, again, every 1,000 feet you climb up in the air, you have this thing called average lapse. We lose about 5 or so degrees in Fahrenheit. And when we talk about wine growing regions, the difference between an intermediate climate and a hot climate is about 3.5 degrees, right at the cusp. Like it just, 3.5 degrees will send you right over the line, between the two types, the two sort of zones. So, when we talk about these climates, it's a really fine grain of difference between the types of climates. So Uco Valley is a much cooler climate because it's much higher elevation. Back to our friends, the Lion, the Ferlottis. This winery was a classically major winery in the region, and I want to show you the major guy who started it. This is Angel Ferlotti. He's an Italian immigrant. He came in as an agronomist, so I found this picture and I was like, man, if this guy was my grandfather, I would be so stoked. Having a stogie with this little short tie and his high-waisted pants. It's amazing. This guy looks amazing. This guy was productive. He started this winery in 1914, and he grew it up into the 1960s to 5,000 acres of grapes. And he had 58,000 olive trees. So this is a crazy amount of effort. I see a QA if we should be decanting this wine before drinking it, and I would recommend about at least 30 minutes of decanting of this wine. And there's a couple things I want to talk about the flavor of this wine. So it's pretty specific to this wine and the age of this wine. They made this wine called Lion, Vino Lion, wine of the lion, and this is Lion Viejo, old lion. I found this old label. I was excited about it, so I wanted to share it with you. And
I love old labels. It's beautiful.
Right. And so this is actually their vineyards in Leon de Cuyo, and you can see the diversity of the landscape and the plantings here. This is a very, very dry region. So we know we've been established here for a long time because we have trees and wind blockers and things like that in basically a desert climate. And so that's at Ferlotti in the Leon de Cuyo area there. But 4 generations later, this is a great granddaughter of Angel. This is Gabriella Ferlotti. And she's actually changed the direction of Ferlotti quite a bit. One of the things that she's done is had a focus on championing the local farmers in the region. She has a program of fair trade, so paying reasonable wages to the employees there, and that's been spearheaded by her. She also has an old vine protection. People are ripping out all kinds of vines, and there's a lot of classic old vines, 100-year-old vines or so in this region, just because it's so old. The classic wine growing, and they're of clones and varieties that people don't really want, that aren't super popular. But she's done a lot to actually preserve these and keep them going for the brand. Overall, Ferloti has a few brands associated with them, and I just want to let you know about them. So if you see them and if you like this wine, you can try to find them. I love these notes that are coming in on the comments on this wine. So this Familia Ferloti is their sort of their flagship brand associated with them. Finca Adalgisa is the name of her family estate that is in Chacasacoria. And that's actually a little hotel that you can stay at. And that's their finest wine that they make, is at this small winery on premise there. And then Soluna is a brand that's focused on fair trade and supporting farmers in these old estate vineyards. So 3 different brands associated with Ferloti that you might want to know about, and very, very delicious. These are a couple of, this is their entry-level Malbec, which I think is quite good. But if you want to bump it up, and we could talk a little bit more about the differences of these wines, there's Finca Lunlunta. This is their single vineyard Lunlunta from the Lunlunta region, and Paraje Altamira. Now, I want to talk about Paraje Altamira and Finca Lunlunta. Check out the Argentina guide. We just launched a massive Argentina guide. This wine is actually included in that guide, and this producer's in part of the guide too. It was a huge effort to get all the information of the regions and to learn and to give you the incredible amount of detail of how to find great wines from this region. Lunlunta, again, is part of the old East Mendoza, and it has alluvial clay soils, and so it's going to make a richer style of wine with more black fruited flavors and pencil lead notes. Whereas Paraje Altamira, that's going to be in, actually, I think I could go out one slide over. That's going to be in the sort of Uco Valley zone, where it's a lot higher elevation, and you're going to notice more cherry fruits in the Malbecs coming from these areas. But if you want to find out more about finding the best wines from Argentina, I highly recommend checking out that guide. And on the notes on tasting, sorry, that took a little bit while. I'm a little bit passionate about Argentina. This wine's old.
Yeah, it is. It's cool that we were able to figure out a way to get a wine that had a little bit of age on it into the club. Like everything else that we're tasting, like 2020, 2021, which is cool and awesome. But like for 2017 for Malbec, I feel like I've heard from some wine professionals, oh, Malbec can't age, which I think is a bunch of baloney, if I'm totally honest. Because it just is. I mean, when it's made well, which this wine is, it's 6 years old already, and this has nothing but time on it. I would feel really comfortable aging this for another 7 to 10 years without question. Would I have preferred to decant it today before we got into this tasting? Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Leather.
Like a 3-hour decant. Yeah, totally.
That's the aging characteristic that pops out to me in roasted rice. Oh, roasted rice. Yeah.
We were talking about that. That's your toasted rice is my tobacco. That's what it is.
For sure. This wine still has lots of acidity on the palate. It's totally a tobacco party. It begs for roasted meats. I want to pair it with filet. That would be my pick.
Yeah. Anything grilled really would just be amazing. Like this, even
carne
with a burger,
asada
I'd be really good with that.
Carne asada burrito.
Yes.
I'm like a high-low. I'm a high-low. That's how I operate. It's like tacos and champagne.
I can dig it.
Yeah. All right.
Alrighty. Well, we're on to our last wine.
You're really excited about this one.
I'm so excited about this wine. For those in the chat, how many people have had a wine from Uruguay? I would love to know that, or a Tanat for that matter. This is definitely a little bit of a outlier in the crew today, to the point where we used our trusted friends at Google to provide you with this map to show you where Uruguay is. So basically, as you can see, like we're sandwiched between Argentina kind of to the west and the south, and then we have Brazil to the other side there too. Not unlike, for Lodi, where you have like this Italian influence. Uruguay also had an Italian influence there as well too, as well as a Portuguese influence. And you kind of see it kind of coming through in, obviously the prevalence of winemaking there at this point. But a few things that like I did not know about Uruguay prior to us chatting is, what other things are they known for? Fine wool. They actually export a ton of luxury wool to Europe to some really top designer labels, which is interesting. Wow. Ranch lands and beef, so not unlike Argentina and Malbec, right? And Tanat. They're very well known for Tanat. To kind of chat a little bit about sort of the actual property, which is visually absolutely stunning. It also, they're like, I would argue, the biggest nerds on sustainability. They were actually one of the first wineries. Well, no, they were de facto the first winery outside of North America to get LEED certification, which is cool. That's kind of like your Olympic gold medal of sustainability. They cover 6 different sort of pillars into what needs to happen, measuring things like water, electricity, all of those things. I love sustainability. I think it's a very important thing about winemaking, how we think about how we can be custodians of the land, but also during harvest in the winery itself too. So this kind of gives you an idea of the lay of the land. I think this is just like I love beautiful pictures.
What the heck? That estate is gigantic.
Right? But you can kind of see the undulating hills too, right? And in the far off in the distance, that's the ocean as well. So it gives you an idea, like you're getting those cooling ocean currents coming in there. So that's pretty neat. I think they're about 5 miles from the sea. And you're kind of getting these like undulating hills. So you're getting the little cool pockets in there as well too, which is neat for them as well. And then I really love this shot because I think it, like, we talk about sustainability a lot, and the actual cellars are actually carved into the side of the hill. And it doesn't really get much more carved into the side of the hill than having some rocks for your walls, right? What's cool about that is like the actual natural rock obviously absorbs water, so that helps maintain humidity within the cellar naturally, which is pretty neat. And yeah, they do all kinds of neat things with water management too. I mean, a lot of people talk about like water management in the vineyard, which is great. And they use drip irrigation to minimize, and you can like, water really lightly in the blocks that you need it to and be really like, conservative that way, which is cool. But what I think is important too is actually in the cellar, how water's managed during harvest. Because you go through heaps of water during harvest, cleaning things, right? Making sure that everything's clean and ready to go, whether that's bins, tanks, you name it. Hygiene's the name of the game, right? So that's really the biggest time of the year that a winery is going through water consumption. And when, at a facility like this, they actually are able to filter and reuse that water over and over and over and over again, which is pretty neato if you ask me.
That's cool. Thanks. I never really knew that much. I had this. I remember the first time I tried. They make this wine, and they make a freaking delicious Albarino.
The Albarino's stunner.
Yeah. So when you brought it into the club, I totally jumped up and down. This wine. You said it earlier, and I'm stealing it from you. I wrote it in my tasting book. It's a wild beast.
It is a wild beast.
This thing is a beast. It's blueberries, right? Cherries, and freaking meaty. It's meaty as heck. It's like floral and meaty and cherries all at the same time. Like raw. Like if you like your steak rare. This is a rare wine right here.
Totally. Like it's got that irony kind of flavor to it.
Yeah.
I find too, like, when people talk about like, I remember when I started learning about tasting and whatnot, it's like the concept of like, oh, this wine's concentrated. I think this is like a textbook definition. If you're like, oh, what's concentration in wine? It is this. It's got some muscle, baby.
Yeah, I remember doing research on tannins in wine just because I was writing an article and I was like, what are the highest tannin wines out there? And fortunately, someone had done some research on the highest tannin grapes. There were some studies available. And I remember seeing the difference, and everyone thinks of Cabernet Sauvignon as a super high tannin grape, and it is. And Tannat is like 3 to 4 times more tannin level in the grapes, in general. I mean, when you taste this wine, it isn't 3 to 4 times more tannic. It actually tastes smooth and balanced, which is surprising for how tannic these grapes are. But that polyphenol, the levels of polyphenols are like off the charts. Polyphenols, antioxidants, the only thing in wine that's good for you.
Totally. It's crazy. And I mean, I think like that's one of the things where like Garzon's really mastered that tannin management, because these can be face melting tannins. And they're not like, I mean, this is a bold wine that has some really strong tannic structure, but it's like, I mean, you could sip on this if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this next photo because it's just so stunning. And also, who doesn't need a food pairing with this? Like, we've been talking about some delicious meats with the Malbec as well. But like, this is some of the stuff that they do at Garzon. It's just like, yeah, I would like to go to this barbecue party, please.
Wow. Yeah, sign me up. I'm there. That's
Right. But I mean, it's
incredible.
just like, when you see that, you're just like, oh, like I can taste the char just looking at that. And I can see how beautifully that would go with this wine.
I think you can order these wines directly from us if you contact club@winefolly.com. I think it's possible to get your hands on some of these wines. I don't know the details. I know we had some trouble with this part of it. We're figuring it out, but I think we have it mostly figured out. But do contact club@winefolly. Kelly will help you sort it out. Sort out your needs. If you want to upgrade your club, if you need help doing that, I know there were some people having fear of missing wine, not FOMO, it's FOMO. So you're welcome to. We do have more openings for the 6-pack now. For the next shipment, I think. Is that right? You're the boss.
So. Yeah, I mean, we'll keep a close eye on inventory. Yeah, we've got a little bit for the 6-packs left for sure. If anybody does want to switch over, that's definitely a possibility.
I see a question. Harrison Allen is asking what wines are generally aged in the concrete vats from Garzon. Based on the taste of this, probably the Tannat.
Yeah, the Tannat does see some concrete. So they have a really interesting, they do some single vineyard Tannats as well too that see a little bit more oak, but this does see some concrete, which, I mean, I think concrete's really exciting. I love seeing people use it a little bit more too. I mean, you talk about sustainability, cleanliness, all of those things, and you get that porosity, so you get that little bit of ingress of oxygen as well too. It's a cool vessel for sure.
That was my tannin face, sorry.
Yeah,
got it. It's like
you can see why we left this for the last wine to taste, hey?
Tannin makes me smile uncontrollably just because it's so, like, I remember the first time I tried Nebbiolo and I was like, oh my god, this is what people are freaking out about. At first when you try it, you're just like, no, this is not okay. And then people are like, no, it's okay, you'll be fine. And you're like, wait, I can drink this? Okay, all right. I don't know. It's a scraper. Tannin, there's actually a study, I remember finding it. Somebody studied this. People get PhDs for this. This person studied tannin on the palate. And the reason why we get this astringent texture, like everything sticks to everything in your mouth, is because tannin actually pulls the proteins off your tongue from the inside of your mouth. All the saliva, all the proteins in your saliva basically get scraped off of your tongue. Now, if you can imagine, you have proteins and other things inside your body going through your digestive tract. They're going to get scraped off too if you keep a little bit of Tannat in your diet as like a half a glass or something like that. This is my justification for drinking red wine. You're hearing it right now. Just drink wine because you like it.
Totally. I noticed that somebody in the chat asked if concrete imparts flavor, and it does not impart flavor. It's kind of like this sweet little love child of the benefits of wood and the benefits of stainless steel, where stainless steel is not imparting any flavor, whereas like wood can be, and then when it's mature, it usually doesn't, but it's porous, so there's that porosity to it, so you do get that little bit of ingress of oxygen that kind of happens with it. So
don't you also doesn't concrete also change with the potassium levels in the wine and possibly reduce acidity as well too a little bit if it's raw?
I think you were correct about that. Sometimes people line it with what's it lined with? Sometimes maybe epoxy or glass.
Yeah, and then that would be totally inert.
Yeah.
And it would probably also be anaerobic as well.
Yeah,
If
totally.
it's lined. So it matters if it's lined concrete or unlined concrete, because an unlined concrete will change. It'll actually, if you have a high acid wine, it'll make it a little less acidic. And then a lined concrete will actually be more. The benefit of concrete too is that it's thick and the temperature doesn't change drastically. So you'll see it a lot in hot climates. You'll see a lot of concrete tanks used in hot climates. And it's really great for full-bodied red wines who don't need a lot of added tannin. We don't need to add oak. We don't need to add extra tannin to this wine. It's got plenty to go around. We had a question from Isaac come in about the Malbec. So I'm brought it back out to remind us, is it typical for a 5 to 6 year old wine to be this laden with tobacco? I see that you've got the roasted rice. You can smell the tobacco in this wine, and it's absolutely tobacco laden. For Malbec from a warm climate like this in Mendoza, I would say this is probably par. If you're higher up in the Uco Valley, I wouldn't expect this to happen this soon. But yes, this to me is about right. And this is the characteristic that we get with aged wine. From a cooler climate, it takes longer for this tobacco story to happen. It might take 10 years or 15 years. But from this particular producer, in this particular wine we are tasting, and this vintage too, 2017, was a pretty warm vintage in Argentina. Wait, I can check our guide and just be sure. I feel like I'm lying right now. Is it true?
Too, with sort of like the tobacco flavors, is like, this doesn't seem new oak, right? When you have that new oak, then all of a sudden, if it was 6 years old and it had more new oak, that tobacco meter is going to be dialed right the heck up, right? So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, less bingo bango. What she said. Whew. Wow, what a tasting.
Yeah, I think we might have a quiz coming up.
Ooh, that's right. Get ready.
Yeah, Christine's gonna troll us with some difficult, challenging questions.
All right, I'm gonna refresh my palate.
Yeah.
It's me again. It's time to see what you've learned today with a quick pop quiz. I'll ask Madeline and Colina a question to see if they know the answer. If you know the answer, make sure you jot it down. Here's the question. Australia is known for being the driest, hottest continent on Earth. However, today we tasted a refreshing and light Sauvignon Blanc from there. How is it that Australia can produce such a range of styles of wine, from light and crisp to full-bodied and juicy? Do you know why?
Always with the hard questions, Christine.
She's a kicker. She made some great quiz questions, and the wrong answers, some of them are really funny on the Wine 201 course.
Yeah, she's got a good sense of humor, that one. So
it's good when you go drinking with your staff.
There's no question. Yeah, so I wonder what everybody's thinking. We got somebody saying proximity to the ocean.
Yeah.
Altitude. Love it.
Love it.
Brian Cox.
C is for Katie too. Got that. Heat and humidity? Question mark. All the climates, all the altitudes, taste and sensibility. Green turtle or elevation? I love these answers. You guys are quick. Anyone else want to hazard a guess or some ideas? I'm going to drink this Sauvignon Blanc.
All right. I'll drink this Prosecco. Should we see what
because Aussies are cool. Best answer.
Yeah, totally.
Cause Yep, that one gets the award. Sorry, the wrong answer. Microclimates. Yeah, Tyler.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the answer. While Australia is known for its hot and dry climate, the country's wine regions span a wide range of latitudes, elevations, and microclimates. The diversity of climate and terrain allows winemakers to grow a multitude of grapes, each of which that can produce different styles of wine. For example, in Tasmania and Adelaide Hills, it's quite cool, thanks to the very cold Southern Ocean. There they produce crisp, refreshing wines, particularly Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Sauvignon Blanc, like we tasted today. However, inland areas such as Barossa Valley are much warmer and produce fuller-bodied, rich styles of red wine, such as Shiraz and Grenache. So next time you think about Australia, don't forget that they make wines that are both full-bodied and fruity, but also amazingly restrained and refreshing styles too. Cheers!
Cheers! Woo! Yay, Christine!
Cheers.
I like it. Sorry, that was Brian.
Other way.
I'm like hitting it to my microphone.
Awesome.
Love the Aussie accent is so cool. It compensates for the temperature.
Yeah, great answers. Loving it.
All right, what's next? What's next on the?
I think we're getting into some Q&A.
If anyone has any questions they want to throw down now, you're welcome to. If you are excited about this and want to stay tuned, this video will be up after this is over and available for access for you to view. And again, if you need to recap, and that would be in the club login experience under shipments. I know we had some people having difficulty getting there, but it's under shipments, and that's how you can access it.
So we have a couple questions. What's the main difference between Uruguay versus Mataran for Southwest France Tannat? And they said that they're so curious. Aren't we all? You know, I had the fortune to work with two Tannat producers in a previous life of mine. And I have very strong opinions on this. So let's go for it. So to me, I think, you know, when you're looking at Southwest France, I always get it. It's like way more meatier, way more savory, a little bit on the rustic side. And like the tannins, I would argue, are sometimes almost untamable, which is excellent for aging wine. You know, I've been fortunate to taste some Mataran that is, you know, upwards of 25 years old, and it's going to be fine for another 25. And that is very cool. Is that every producer? And how does that help me in my drinking life? You know, it makes me want to search out some old Tannat for sure, right? I find Uruguay, because they have much more recently modernized their wine industry, they're being a lot more careful with tannin management and trying to make wines that are a little bit drinkable earlier on, which I think this very much is, but could still easily, you know, cellar for, you know, upwards of 7 to 10 years as well. But I find, you know, you do get a little bit more sort of a polished fruit driven style in Uruguay. That would be my hot take there. And I'm happy to be proven wrong on that. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there.
Okay, we're starting to get some great questions in. I see one from Robert, who's working on his WSCT. How do you get better with picking out things? Do you use nose or taste? We probably have both slightly different answers or whatever. How about you? You go first.
I mean, I'll nose something quickly and write down 2 or 3 things. But I find I get a lot more from taste, and that's personally how I like to go about it. What I found really helpful for getting flavors was just tasting the thing, like not the actual wine. I mean, obviously taste lots of wine, that's helpful in learning, but like taste raspberries, taste underripe raspberries. Think about the fruit that you're having, right? Is this a really, really ripe apple? Is this a really, really underripe apple? Just like be like more aware as you're tasting things generally in your life. I think that makes people better, more accurate tasters for sure. What do you think, Madeline?
I'm one of those like idiot savant tasters where I know it when I see it almost immediately. Mm-hmm. But I'm often confused by there are a couple of things that will confuse me, and acidity is one that confuses me often, because sometimes you can have a really high acid wine from a warm climate, and you know it's warm climate, it looks warm climate, it's definitely a warm climate, but you can't place it there because you're thrown off by a detail. So when I get into that stage, I actually trust my nose a little bit more. I find that my nose is stronger than my palate. But I have a friend who is a non-taster, or not a non-taster. Yeah, he's basically his nose doesn't. He has not as anosmia. He's not anosmia, but like he's a master sommelier. So you can do it. You've got the tools. Just use them and find the way that works for you. So for me, it's to trust what I know to be true because I have the tasting experience. But that's me. Okay, next question. Woo! How does Aussie Sauvignon Blanc? We have a bunch of questions really quick, so we're gonna rapid fire them. How does Aussie Sauv Blanc compare to Sauv Blanc from France? For example, a Sancerre. How does the Aussie Sauv Blanc compare to Sauv Blanc from France? For example, a Sancerre. You can answer this. I'm sure you have to. I know you know.
I mean, to me, I find like you kind of get like a little bit more savoriness to Sancerre. Although Sancerre is interesting in the last like 5 years, there's been some really hot vintages there, and the alcohols are getting higher, so you're getting more richness. And in my opinion, I feel like Sancerre is becoming more almost Aussie like in that regard, right? That's just me. Like, you know, if you would have been tasting Sancerres more than 5 years ago, otherwise, like those are a little bit leaner, a little bit more minimal. I always like got this like really chalky kind of note to it, but I'm finding with the warmer, riper vintages that's kind of deteriorating in the wines, and maybe not. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a change.
Here's a question from Vogel Channel. The Pinot and Rhone Reds tonight seemed very harsh. Such that I struggle to discern the fruit. Is it their youth? All right, now I want to know what tastes harsh. It's harsh. They are youthful. Oh, nose is great on both of these wines.
I mean, to me, I think the big thing with these two is that they are being youthful, and they're being a bit of a tease. Like they're compact, their flavors. That being said, I think I poured this glass for myself at about, was it maybe 3 hours ago, and it's opened up significantly. So I would advise just let it sit out, give it a little bit of air. I think that really applies to both of those wines because they're tightly wound, youthful.
This one,
fellas.
This one in particular, the Domaine de Durban, has that spiciness that you're talking about, and to me, that comes across as acidity on the palate that I'm tasting on the Domaine de Durban compared to the Pinot. The Pinot's a little bit less. I feel like that's acidity. It's not volatile acidity; it's just acidity. Next question. Pinot and the Rose. Sauvignon Blanc is so two-faced. In California, worm, you get more mandarin, where the New Zealand ones, cool climate, are my fave. The super kiwi and pineapple. That's a comment. Okay. I agree about the Pinot. Tobacco is very strong to me and overrun the fruit for my taste. For the Pinot. Okay. That's interesting. The Pinot I wasn't really getting that, but maybe tobacco. I was definitely getting tobacco on the Malbec.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So our notes, Beth, someone commented on the tasting notes. We will be posting our notes when we figure out how to post them into the club. So you'll be able to access each one of our notes, and we all are different tasters. So we all have different notes, and hopefully one of you can connect with one of us or find your own way to your notes. So it's helpful to look at other people's notes to find your own way. I'm surprised your tastings weren't more academic. Color, nose, sugar, fruit, tannin, acidity. Will the notes cover this? Yeah, pretty much. We have basically follow the method. Mine says woe decant on the Domaine de Durban, as you can see here.
Yeah.
But we have notes on the acidity, tannin. We thought it might be not as fun to go through the tasting so pro. But if you guys really love that, send an email to club@winefolly.com and let us know your opinions and feedback on this tasting. And we might be able to adjust the club in the future. If people want to do like a quick throwdown, we could probably throw that into the live.
Field speed taste.
Yeah. So that one is good for a longer decant. Yes. Okay. Woo! It's Thursday night tasting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been a blast. I'm so happy that we get to do this after all of the hard work that we've put into making this, to being together, to taste, to collect, to share, to have a community. How great is that?
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Colina, for setting this up, getting
Yeah,
this
thank
started.
you. Also, like, mad shout out to the Wine Folly team and all the hard work that everybody's put in to make this happen. Our boy Crom, who is doing the moderation and the production here, is just killing it. And Sam Squatching up in the corner there. We love that. We love our Sam Squatch. And yeah, I mean, check out our region guides for Mendoza, for Canigliano Valdobbiadene. You can rewatch when we have it logged in. We have a small little bit of trimming to do, so it'll maybe be like a couple hours before it goes up. That's no big deal. And yeah, we're also like so pumped up for next month's wines. Like, it's bigger, it's better, it's going to be amazing. And you guys are our inaugural members, and that's like no small thing. So thanks for the love. We really,
Yeah,
really, really
we really
appreciate it.
appreciate you. 100%. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, today. We had an amazing time tonight, and we'll make sure we make it an hour next month. Not an hour and 15. Okay. Salut!